This is the Lunatics and Legends podcast. In this episode, we are going to be discussing things that are for entertainment purposes only. Don't freak out. We're just having fun.
Controlled the narrative, controlled the environment, only gave people what they controlled the news, and pretty soon you turned store clerks, bank tellers, fathers, store operators into death camp operators. That's what I'm talking about, and that's what MKUltra was designed to do. What you have is somebody that got experimented on and then went and did his own thing.
Because let's be realistic, like that's what our country does.
Oh, I agree 100%. But
Right.
You don't need electrocution, you don't need LSD, and you don't need drugs, and you don't need for that to happen. Well, the reason that you don't have what you say you want is because of, and then he started going down this path slowly but surely, slow burn. Pretty soon we got to get rid of these people, and then that's what it turned into. When people call MKUltra un-American, no, it was the most literal way, imported. We didn't invent that in darkness, right? That was, and then what we did is we recruited it, we gave it a security clearance, and we put it on the payroll.
Right.
So let's talk about why I think it didn't produce the Manchurian Candidate.
Okay.
All right. So you don't need it. You don't need that for mind control. All we have to do is look at Hitler a decade earlier.
Sure.
Right? He didn't have LSD, electrocution, torture, right? What he did is he controlled the environment. He controlled the amount of information. He didn't run on a platform of, hey, I'm going to get elected and I'm going to go kill 6 million Jews. That's not what he ran on.
Right.
Right? He ran on, hey, we're going to have this great Germany. We're going to have the best country out there. We're going to become an economic power. And everybody got behind him. And then slowly, over time, controlled the narrative, controlled the environment, only gave people what they controlled the news. And pretty soon you turned store clerks, bank tellers, fathers, store operators into type operators.
Right.
He didn't use any of what MKUltra did.
Well, and that is one of the reasons I take the stances that I take when it comes to politics is like, and or just life for that matter, is like, I think his step one was more, you've been oppressed, you've been victimized, and here's the evil culprit that did it.
Of course, that's what he eventually got to, of course.
Right. But
That's
I'm
not what
saying,
he ran on. That's not what he ran on originally, but that's what he pushed for. What he pushed for initially was, hey, we're going to have a better Germany. We're going to have an economic power. We're going to have jobs for everybody, right? That was his way of getting elected. And then what he started talking about was, well, the reason that you don't have what you say you want is because of, and then he started going down this path slowly but surely, slow burn. Pretty soon we got to get rid of these people, and then that's what it turned into.
Yeah.
And then it turned into, I want to conquer the world, right?
Right.
He had a pretty easy path into that too, because Germany coming out of World War I was really used up.
That's right.
They got the raw end of every stick that was available to them.
Yep.
And so it was very easy for him to come in and be persuasive and talk about how he was going to make Germany great again, because it was not.
Right.
They were in a very bad way after World War I.
Yeah. And so I think the problem with the CIA's model in MKUltra is what the Gottlieb's theory was: one, destroy a man's mind and then put a new one in there, for lack of a better term. So they got scarily good at doing step one, but not so good at doing step two.
Yeah.
Right? That's. I'm not saying that we don't do it.
Right.
But I'm not saying we do it that way.
And I would say that there are cases in American history and recent American history that would argue otherwise.
Okay. Like what?
Well, Ted Kaczynski talks about it in his...
But he did that to himself.
I'm talking about his time at Harvard.
Okay.
He was under what some believe, and as you well know, Harvard was one of the places, right,
Yeah,
where they were doing these
yeah.
things. Yeah. And he talks about how he went in through the psychological programs, and that was what led him to then become the Unabomber, right? And in his memoirs, he talks about that. And I'm just saying that's pretty strong evidence right there alone. And I'm not saying that like there haven't been schools that went rogue or programs that went rogue and did their own thing. However, I would say that you have point B, right? Which is he became the Unabomber and killed people. But his point A was that he was at Harvard and went through some psych stuff that is very much in alignment with what people believe MKUltra is.
Right. No, and I'm not debating that. What I'm saying is, if you want to develop a Manchurian Candidate, this isn't Jason Bourne.
Right.
What they wanted to do was mind control. Hey, Eddie, I want to look at this person. That's what I'm talking about, and that's what MKUltra was designed to do. What you have is somebody that got experimented on and then went and did his own thing. That's what I mean by unreliable, unpredictable, and not repeatable. And so I think 20 years of MKUltra was a waste of money, because you can do it a lot of other ways.
I think that it depends on the rubric in which you're judging the situation, because could they ring a dinner bell and all of a sudden radicalize Ted Kaczynski? No, probably not. Or whomever else in his stead, right? Probably not. But then, why do at least 20 years of this? And that's, again, arguable if it's been shut down, right? Allegedly shut down, allegedly never opened, allegedly. However, I think you can do things like chemical alterations of the brain, and then you create, again, no bells ringing, no snap of the finger, and all of a sudden you have a super soldier. But I do think that you can alter the way that people behave through chemicals, and as well as you saw in Operation Midnight Climax and all those things, that there was a lot of subliminal messaging that was going on to them while they're in this altered state, void of conscious thought, and putting up the barriers that we put up psychologically in normal day-to-day cognition.
I think that it's pretty clear that most hard drugs, when used and abused aggressively, create some kind of agent of chaos. So if I'm tripping on some sort of a mind-altering hallucinogenic, you might not be able to control exactly what sort of chaos I co-create, but the reality is that I'm going to create some kind of chaos. So right. Ted Kaczynski, they might not have known that he was going to go be the Unabomber, but if he was a product of that experiment, it's still a success because he still went off and did a bunch of terrible things. Could they make him do those things, Clockwork Orange style? I don't know, right? It's unknown, but I think to your point is that the repeatable part of it, like, sure, not repeatable or sustainable or
even predictable.
Yeah, predictable. And I think that's more of the point. It's not predictable what he's going to do. We know something, they're going to do something that's going to be harmful. We just don't know what it is.
That's right. And so that's what I was saying. They got scarily good at doing point A, which is destroying somebody's mind. Right?
Got it.
But they couldn't make him do a specific act of violence.
Hey, now, they're not going to create a Jason Bourne, is what I'm saying. And that's what they wanted to create out of MKUltra.
Instead,
and that's why, because you don't run something for 20 years and go, oh, the 21st year it works, so let's destroy everything.
Right.
I think the reason that they destroyed everything is because of the crimes they committed.
Right. To get there.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the
bodies are stacking up, literally.
The bodies are stacking up everywhere. We got to get rid of this stuff. We're going to jail for the rest of our lives.
Right.
So that's why they destroyed the evidence, not because it worked. I do agree, and to your point, is that when you do, because look at if somebody's on methamphetamine or some other things, like, I mean, they have this soup, they don't feel any pain. You have 25 cops taking down one guy, and so they do create like this craziness.
Right.
But to have it reliable, predictable, be able to point that person at a target and get them to go kill that target, that never happened.
And I think that would be the difference between a sniper rifle and a shotgun. But if the goal is to create chaos or the goal is to create damage, mission accomplished.
Right. But how are you going to control that? That's the problem.
But you don't necessarily have to. If you're pushing a whole narrative of something, right? Say, for example, you take, fill in the blank, I'm sure they will, but you take this specific religion and you pit it against another specific religion, and your goal is to demonize said specific religion, you can then radicalize them or radicalize a person who says in the name of that specific religion, and then it blanket demonizes, because let's be realistic, like that's what our country does.
Oh, I agree 100%. But you don't need electrocution, you don't need LSD, and you don't need drugs, and you don't need for that to happen.
I agree.
Yeah, there are plenty of other forms of manipulation that we know are entirely functional in social media to do exactly that.
Right. So, well, think about Jim Jones. He walked 900 people into a jungle, and then they suicide him. Now,
Right.
he didn't start that way, right? So I think who actually cracked mind control is not the CIA. I think it's Hitler, Jim Jones, all these other people who are able to control the narrative, control the information, control the environment. That's what got them to do things that they wouldn't normally do.
I believe there was, however, an actual alleged connection between Jim Jones and the CIA as well, though. And I mean,
that's alleged, right? I mean, there's no evidence, right?
Right. And why were there senators hopping on a plane flying down to Guyana for just some crackpot that,
Because they were getting complaints, and of course those senators end up dying, so they weren't going down there to see if it was working.
No. I'm not saying they were going down there to check up on the results. I'm saying if they were like, our guy here is going off the path. This isn't what we wanted. They're going down to check in on it, and
I mean, that's one theory, no evidence, right? So
fair.
Right. So, but when he walked 900 people, he convinced 900 people to drink cyanide. No, he didn't come out with that.
Convinced.
Well, no sleep, loudspeaker, control the environment. Remember what I said earlier, control the environment, control the narrative,
right.
Control what goes on. And sleep deprivation is probably one of the biggest weapons that he had, right?
Yeah.
To the survivor.
But there were also people standing there with guns saying, we're going to, no, you should just drink the Kool-Aid.
Right, yeah. And so, I'd rather get Josh, which is some people did.
Same.
Yeah, right.
I'd rather die fighting, personally.
Of course,
but
yeah. So how about, so total isolation. He moved into the Guyana jungle. He controlled all the source of reality, controlled the environment, controlled the narrative, right? Got people to believe all this stuff. Loudspeakers, the only thing living in people's heads, his voice, right? He's got all this narrative about imminent nuclear holocaust, KKK running through the streets, and people are believing it.
Right.
They think that the world's about to end.
Right. They've been disconnected from any sources, and they're just being told by repeated messaging where at a certain point it stops being voices on a speaker and becomes either your own mind
reality,
or it becomes God, right? Depending on the person. And he took the religious standpoint of it, so he became God to a lot of those people.
That's right. He controlled there because the only thing in their head was him.
Right.
That was the thing.
And I think that goes back to, like, we were kind of discussing the studies done with obedience to authority, Dr. Stanley Milgram.
Yep.
And I'll go down that story real fast, give the cliff notes of it, but it's a highly wild, I love this story. So Dr. Stanley Milgram in the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, set up a situation where he would have a participant pressing a button, and he would have a participant that was going in another room that was going through a memory test, right? And so he would mention off some words, and that person had to then repeat the words back in order, or they would get shocked. And so the participant, he'd say like balloon, kite, shoelace, spatula, and they would have to read it back in the order. And if they did it wrong, the other participant would shock them. And it, would increase in electricity every once in a while.
Voltage goes up.
Yeah. So they get it wrong, voltage goes up, right? Person gets shocked even more. Mr. Prozzi was the one that they really focused in on to tell the story about this, right? Who was the one that was pressing the button. The guy in the other room kept getting it wrong. And he's like, look, I have a heart condition. You have to stop this. And Stanley Milgram was in the room next to Mr. Prozzi and going, no, he knew what he was getting into. I take full responsibility for this. Shock him again. And it continued on. And I don't quote me on the statistics because I didn't look it up. However, it was something like 60% of people would shock him after he was the participant as dead and laying on the table after, and it was 80% of people would continue to shock him after he said, I have heart problems, you're going to, essentially proving that the average human, at least at that time, was so obedient to authority that Dr. Stanley Milgram would stand by and go, I take full responsibility. They knew what they were getting into, pressed the damn button. And like, again, 80%. And this is not just American society. This has been repeated in multiple countries. That experiment has since been banned in the United States for good reason. The aftermath, and to go ahead and get to it, the guy getting shocked was an actor.
Of course, yeah.
The guy, Mr. Prozzi, and whoever in that spot was the actual test experiment. And to find out what level of depravity we would go to if an authority figure told us, no, press the button.
Of course.
I wonder
and
how you would.
No, but see, it proves my point. You didn't need LSD.
Yeah.
You didn't need to electrocute somebody, sleep deprive them, or anything.
A totally sober mind was completely breakable.
That's right. So you don't need to break into the mind. That's what MKUltra was trying to do, was break into the mind. Force it, drug it, shock it. But if you control everything around the mind, what you hear, what you talk to, when you sleep, what you're afraid of, the mind does the rest.
Are you tired of big corporations farming you for views? So are we. We're just two poor guys that are trying to put together a podcast. So if you can give us some help by doing a like, share, comment, subscribe, or save, it helps us trend in the algorithms. Thanks.